Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. Today we're in our FA-18C and we're looking at two types of navigation, TACAN and ICLS. In the Hornet there are four different types of navigation. Our primary is INS, Inertial Navigation System, waypoint based system, which is our main tactical navigation system. This allows us to navigate through pre-planned routes and employ weapons on waypoints. Our second is TACAN, meaning tactical air navigation. Now, despite the name, this is actually more general purpose navigation. TACAN allows us to home in and guide us to anywhere where there is a TACAN station. Usually this is going to be at an airfield, but it can also be on a ship or on an aircraft. If it's an aircraft, it's usually going to be an air-to-air tanker. So let's see how we can tell if an airfield has TACAN. If we press F10 to get to the main menu, then we can look at a military airbase. I've got one down here with a TACAN sign on it, which is that there, and you can see we get the information, we get TACAN, and we get a code for the TACAN station. Regards a ship, if a ship has a TACAN, we cannot click on it and find it out. The only way to find out if a ship has TACAN is if you've made the mission yourself or in the mission briefing screen, and the same with an aircraft like an air-to-air tanker. The third type of navigation is ICLS. This is an ILS system, an instrument landing system designed to help you land when visibility is poor, either at night or fog or cloud or whatever. This ICLS system only works for carriers in the Hornet. It does not work for airfields. And then finally there's ADF, automatic direction finding. This allows you to navigate to VOR stations on the airfield and ground units transmitting with radio signals. Now we've covered INS and ADF in different videos, so today we're looking at TACAN and ICLS. I'm putting this in one video because these tend to go hand in hand. So what you tend to use is the TACAN to roughly navigate you to a place of interest, so in this case it's going to be an aircraft carrier, and then the ICLS to actually do the landing. So if we go to the map, we'll have a quick look at today's task. That's our F-18. We're currently heading east. We are nearest down at 27 miles from this CV here. What we're going to do is turn our TACAN system and tune in to this Stennis here, which is on the code of 11 X-ray. We're then going to use the TACAN to offset a course to get on the radial of the aircraft carrier. So the radial is essentially the angle of the runway. So if we went down to this airfield here and we were landing in this direction here, that would be the radial. So the radial of this aircraft carrier is, well, it's 9.5 degrees, but as near as damn it 10 degrees, because this carrier is heading directly northbound. To make things simple, the carrier is offset 9.5 degrees to the right, so let's say 10 degrees. So it's going to be something like that there. We want to intercept that radial at any point along that radial outside of 10 miles. Then we're going to use our TACAN to turn towards the Stennis and fly along that radial towards the ship. Once we get to about 10 miles, we're going to switch from TACAN to ICLS, which is going to guide us the rest of the way, literally until touchdown. And that's how those two systems are going to work together. In regards to our carrier, I have set it up in the mission editor with a TACAN station of 11 X-ray and an ICLS code of 12. So we can get underway now. Let's unpause. Now the first thing we want to do is set up our TACAN. So TACAN, and we've got some options here. We can go transmit receive, receive only, or air to air. Transmit receive means two-way signaling, which means that we can attain the azimuth of the TACAN station and the range. Receive means that we can receive signals only. This means that we can get the azimuth of the TACAN station but not the range. And then air to air, obviously, if you're tracking an air-to-air target. We can also choose X-ray or Yankee here. TACAN's codes always have either an X-ray or a Yankee at the end of the code. So we're going to type in 11 and enter, and then turn the system on here. So now we're going to take the chance to set up our ICLS. Now, it's better to, we're not going to use our ICLS yet until later on, but it's better to get everything you can set up as early as you can, so there's less to do, less workload at the end where it's going to get a little more difficult. So we're going to go to ILS, we're going to go channel 12, enter, turn it on. Now, so we need to actually engage these systems. Now we can work from the AMPCD down here. I personally am not a fan of that. I find it just too far down. So I'm going to work on a HSI on my left DDI here. So I'm going to click menu, again, HSI, I'm going to turn my TACAN on, I'm going to leave my ICLS off. Now what we can see is that our TACAN station is now displayed, and this is a universal signal, I don't know what it's called, but universal signal for a TACAN station. You can see we're selected a scale of 40 miles, it's up here to our front left. We can also see that we've got some data here on the top left of the HSI. We've got the heading from us to the TACAN station, or the carrier there, 021 degrees. We've also got a distance of 25.2 miles and a time at our current course to get there. Now this will allow us to navigate directly to the TACAN station or the carrier, but that's not good enough. We need to intercept the radial. So we're going to program a radial in now. We're going to do it using the course mark line for the HSI. So that's this button here. I'm going to press and hold left click until a course line appears here. What I meant to say is press and hold left click until course select appears here. So we've got our course line in now. Now we need to program it. Now the carrier is heading due north, if you remember. So the course that we want to set is not due north but offset left from the carrier by 10 degrees. So 360 or 0 minus 10 degrees is 350. So let me go course select there. I'm going to go 350, enter. And that is now set on our radial, which, if you remember, is that line there. So now we're going to fly perpendicular to the radial. I should say at this point, we're not trying to do a full case 3 landing. This is just showing the TACAN and the ICLS. So regardless my altitudes and speeds, I'm not going to worry too much. I'm now going to turn perpendicular to this radial here and intercept this radial. Once we've intercepted it, we're going to turn onto it and then travel along that radial to the carrier. So let's get that done. We've also got course information here that we can use. I prefer to use it in the HSI. It's just what I prefer. So it's full blackout today. Everything is going to be instrumentation. Saying that, we can contact the carrier to get it to put its lights on. I've put easy communications on this mission just to make it the workload a bit less. So we're going to go contact ATC, this guy, inbound. No, I have no idea why I'm speaking in Russian. He just is. Right, we've got to start thinking ahead. When we're doing this, we should always be thinking ahead. So once I've turned onto the radial, we're going to then travel towards the carrier. We want to set our altitude, I found, about 3,000 feet at that point. That's going to allow us to intercept the glide slope best when we turn on our ICLS. So we're going to start losing altitude a little bit now. What I like to do as well is to zoom in at the HSI here so we can get maximum resolution, maximum detail. So we're going to zoom in as we go. In fact, 10 miles should just about do. In fact, why don't we go for 5? We're going to start bringing down the speed now. By the time we get to our 10 miles and switch to our ICLS, we ideally want to be on speed for the carrier landing. Okay, we're getting pretty close to our radial now, probably only about a mile away, so we're going to start turning into it. When intercepting radials, you always want to turn before you get to the radial, otherwise you'll overshoot. Speed's getting a little bit low, so a little more power. Oh, I should turn my controls on so you can see my controls. So if you look at the bottom left of the screen, you can see my controls, so I don't have to explain what I'm doing with the stick and the trimmer. 21 miles now from the carrier. Pretty close to that radial now, must just be a quarter of a mile or so. I'm going to start turning in a bit more. That is the radial just about intercepted, so a bit more turn. And I think we may have turned a little bit shy there. Let's just have a quick look. Yep, we turned a little bit shy, so I'm just going to correct over to the right. Right, now the next thing we want to do is we want to get the plane dirty and in landing configuration before we get to our 10 miles. Like I said, everything we need to get done as soon as possible because at the 10 miles it's going to start getting more difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our gear down, our flaps down to full landing, and our hook down and get down to on speed and ideally to on alpha as well before we hit the 10 mile marker. So let's start getting that done now. Gear down, flaps down to full, hook down, and this is going to mess up our trim and everything, so we've got to start getting everything corrected now. Trimming down. Speed's going to come down. With our weight of fuel, I think it's about 30%. We're going to be about 130 knots to get on speed, maybe slightly less. Just going to check our radial now. Okay, that's a little bit better. Maybe we've overshot a little bit, actually. Okay. So when I say on speed, we need to get a speed that puts us and holds us at A, certain glide slope towards the carrier, and B, at the correct angle of attack to land. The correct angle of attack to land has to be 8 degrees. Yes, 8 degrees. If we can't achieve that angle of attack when landing, our arrestor hook will not work. And we'll go around. We've got plenty of instrumentation to help us with that. First, we have the E bracket here. This E bracket we want to maneuver, and we maneuver this by our speed, so that the middle of the E bracket is as close to the path vector here as we can. If we can get our path vector inside that E and hold it there, then we can land safely. And that's controlled essentially by our speed. By the looks of things, we're going to be about 120 28 knots, something like that. We've also got our angle of attack shown here, and as well as that, we've got our angle of attack director here. Now we can't see it because it's complete blackout. We have a like a circle that appears when we are on angle of attack. We've got a down arrow here saying that we are below the required angle of attack, and an up arrow here. If that shines, we are at too much angle of attack. Right, so we've got to start getting everything balanced now because we're getting near to 10 miles. Too fast. Just trying to get myself on speed and on trim. That there feels like a good speed. I'm going to trim myself up at this speed, tiny bit more speed, so that I am heading at the horizon. Okay, that feels pretty good there. I'm just going to quickly cheat and check I am on radial. You can see I'm just about perfectly on the radial at this point. So, like I said, it's not good enough to just head towards the carrier. We've got to be on our radial if we want a chance of landing this thing. So radial is good, so we don't have to worry about azimuth so much now. I can actually see something. I don't know if you can see that on the video. I can see a dot or something out there. So that's going to give me a little bit of extra guidance, which is good. Right, so now I can concentrate until I get to 10 miles, at which point I will get my ICLS on. Right, just still working my speed out. Spending this time just getting on speed still. That's starting to get a bit more settled. You can see I'm right in the middle of that E bracket now with my path vector. So that's good. You can see the inputs I'm putting on the stick are almost nothing now. What I'm trying to do is get myself fully trimmed, so I have to have 0 stick input. That's the name of the game at this point. A little bit slow now. I'm going to do a quick check that I'm on radial, as well as looking down here. We do have symbology here. We can see that, check that we're on radial by this guy here being in the center of the path marker. Right, we've got 3 more miles to get settled. Still not quite settled. Lost visual of the carrier. I know it's out there somewhere, but still trimming. 2 miles to go. Starting to feel okay. Tiny bit less speed. Okay, that's feeling a lot better. So we're pretty settled there. Okay, I just want to keep myself level now. So I want my path vector right in the middle of that horizon, really, so we can intercept the glide slope. Okay, yep, that's feeling good. One final check before we go turn to the ICLS. I'm going to pause this. You wouldn't obviously usually pause it during an actual mission, but it just gives me a bit of time to speak. We can see that we are on angle of attack there on our director. We are perfectly in the E there, so we're on speed. We're good to go. We've got 1 mile until we're going to change to ICLS. Double check down here with our HSI. We're not perfect, not pixel perfect, but pretty good for the radial there. So everything's looking good. I'm completely trimmed out, so I've got my hands, if I unpause now, I'm not touching the stick at all. Everything's completely off. So this is how all of your landing should be in airfield or in carrier. So you've got 0 stick input needed. Okay, right, we're ready to switch to ICLS. So over to our HSI, click ICLS here, and we've got a new chap. With the ICLS, we get 2 new lines. We get a localizer and a glide slope. The localizer is this tall vertical line here. It does not head us towards the carrier. It gets us correctly on the glide slope radial. So at the moment it's saying it's offset ever so slightly to the right. So it's saying I want to come right very slowly. But it's important not to chase this line too much. In my early days when I was learning ICLS, what I would do is I would chase the localizer left and chase it right. Well, you put yourself into what I call a tank slapper at that point, and it becomes unrecoverable, or pilot-induced oscillation. It's best to ever so slightly nudge towards that line, but very, very slightly. Accept that it's off to the side slightly and just nudge towards it. The key for doing this successfully is to basically come in to the ICLS in correct configuration, and that's why I made such an effort and such a, talking about setting up that course line with the TACAN. That's why it's so important to come into this ICLS pretty much straight and level to land. So we get the localizer now. Now we won't get the glide slope until we're closer, probably 6 or 7 miles, something like that. The glide slope will be a left to right line, and it tells us whether we are above or below the ideal glide slope. What we want to do is have that ideal glide slope come right through the middle of our path vector here. If it comes below us, then we are high, and we do need to chase it down, unfortunately. Again, it's keen to avoid pilot-induced oscillation. If it's above us, the key is not to chase it up, but but to go level or just below level, and then that glide slope, because naturally that glide slope is going to keep coming down, will slowly come down to meet us. Now we're going to use ICLS and all the way until we can get visual for landing, basically. That's usually going to be about a mile, sometimes 3/4 of a mile, at which point we can use the ball and our eyes to do the rest of the landing. You can use night vision goggles if you want to, in the last mile. I personally prefer not to. I think they're bloody rubbish. So the glide slope's telling us to go right, so ever so slightly to the right, but keen not to chase it. And we're going to start losing a bit of altitude now as well, because we're technically within the 10-mile glide slope now. So we're going to start losing a bit. I'm not going to touch the stick. I'm just going to use my trim. If I do everything right now, I should not need to use the pitch stick at all. I should only need to use the trim with regards to pitch. Not saying that I am going to do it right, but that's the theory. We're going to start heading down a bit more now. I feel that we're slightly above the glide slope, and come off speed slightly. Down in throttle slightly. Trimming up again. I haven't touched the stick yet. It's going ever so slightly right. I know we've got master caution there. I haven't got time to check it out now. Speed is good. We need to go a little further to the right again. I've not quite met that radial yet. 7.5 miles. Plenty of room to go. On speed. We're in our E bracket. All is well. If I can knock one knot off, that would be... There's our glide slope, right? There's our glide slope. So I'm going to now start heading down with my trim to meet that glide slope. I want that glide slope to stay right in the middle of my path vector, ideally. You can see I'm not using any stick apart from left and right roll. Still got our localizer telling us to go out to the right a bit, so we're still off our radial ever so slightly. I'm going to be naughty and pause it now, just out of interest, to show you that I am left of the radial. Oh! I'm actually right of the radial, apparently. Well, the reason that is probably because I can't set this radial line perfectly accurately, because when I measured it, the actual correct radial should be 9.5 degrees, and we can only put full degrees in when it comes to this course here. So this radial is probably out by about 0.5 degrees. I don't have a solution for that. Right, what we're going to do at this point, if I haven't already done, is zoom right into the HUD, because everything I want to know is in this HUD at the moment. I've just realised while chatting I've gone off speed, so I need to get down on speed. Now, regards my out... Oh, sugar. I've just wrecked it. I've wrecked it. Idiot. Okay, we can rescue this. Don't worry, chaps. Regards speed... Regards altitude, I can't talk and fly. It's so hard. Request landing. Right, we're too low. We're going to start heading up. Now remember, we're not going to chase the glide slope up. Instead, what we're going to do is just get ourselves somewhere between the carrier and the horizon line. We want to get back up to about 128 knots, something like that. We need to get back on angle of attack. And what we're going to do is let that glide slope come down to us now. Okay. Still chasing that localizer right. Okay, a little bit too high there. Let's get down a bit. Oh, this is where it starts to get a bit dodgy. Okay, we're going to go down with the glide slope now. Okay, it's all coming together. Now you can see we've got a glide slope and our localizer bang in the middle. That's exactly where we want to hold it. If I was a good pilot, I'd be able to hold that in the middle. A real Hornet pilot could hold that in the middle all the way. But obviously I'm just a stupid cat. If I could knock off one... Oh, I'm drifting. Don't do it, cat. I'm losing situational awareness here. This is bad. Okay. Let's get it back. Tiny bit of trim. Tiny bit of roll. If I could shed off one more knot, I'd be a happy man. Now, we're going to get close now, so we need to talk about the final thing, which means I need to pause it and probably wreck everything, but let's just do it. Generally speaking, within a mile, we're going to switch from ICLS to visual. So it's important to make that transition. We can just about see the ball now. Yeah, so let's carry on. So we are slightly above the glide slope still, and we're still slightly offset in angle. I think it's only about 1/4 of a degree, so I think we're going to be okay. So our altitude, we're essentially changing with our speed now, rather than our pitch of our stick. We're going to zoom in a little bit more. We'll turn in just at the last minute to get that angle perfect. Optimum speeds appears to be about 126. Yes, Betty, we're landing. Okay, bang on the glide slope now. So I'm going to turn in now for perfect localizer. Off power a little. On power a little. Off power a little. Feels pretty good. Off power a little. Slightly askew, but I think that's going to be okay. Full power. Whoop-de-whoop. Right, so that was okay. It wasn't perfect, you know, but we showed basically using the ICLS and how to do it. The key just seems to be to keep on speed, very gentle movements, if any movement at all with a stick, and tiny bits of trim. The only other thing I'd quickly like to show, because I think I missed it out of the nighttime mission, was that I connected to a TACAN station of an airbase just off to my right here in the daytime, and the only thing I want to add is that we have a guide up here on the heading tape. You can see that's where we're currently heading, and that guide is telling us we want to turn that way to get to the TACAN direction. So let's head that direction, and you can see it neutralizes when you turn on to the course. And we've got our distance there, and we've got the name of the station that we're tracking, which is MA. And you can see if we zoom in here, this is the airbase, and that's the MA, the name of that TACAN station. Okay, so other than that, the range that you can use the TACAN for really depends on your altitude. So if you're at really high altitude and you can kind of, you know, look around the curvature of the Earth, then I've got about 150 miles out of a TACAN station before. And as well as that, just make sure you've got line of sight. TACAN won't work if you've got a mountain or even a big building in the way of you and the TACAN station. So that's a common thing that I've seen people do wrong. Otherwise, it's pretty simple. Right, that's everything I've got to say. I hope that helps, and see you later.